welcome to Checks and Balances. I'm Michael Vincent. This is James Blair, and today we've got Ben Brinkerhoff, Head of Advice at Consilium, to talk about the science of spending.
Ben, welcome back. It's been a while.
Thank you. Yeah, it's good to be back.
Yeah, we went through our phase last time you were here where we weren't quite sure who we were, and we went to some studios, but we're back home and we're happy where we are, aren't we, Mike?
Absolutely, we are. Check the background.
Loving the digs.
Yeah. So, I mean, the feedback I got on the podcast we did with you last time, really, really good. It was like, we need to get this guy back for him to spin off some more yarns about, your perception on money and life and all that kind of good stuff.
Okay.
For those who haven't seen the previous episodes, Head of Advice at Consilium, what's Consilium all about?
Consilium is a business that basically provides consulting services to independent financial advisors. If we do our job well, independent advisors stay independent. Yeah. And what that means is they don't have to sell anyone else's stuff and they can just advocate their clients' interests. But huge amount of infrastructure required to be independent. You have to outsource a lot of things that are just not your core business. Consilium steps into the gap and makes it happen. Yeah.
Nice. Cool. Okay. The science of spending. Where do you want to start?
Well, it's a topic I got interested in because I started to notice something, which is that people died with a lot of money and without intending to, right? Yeah. So there's no problem with saying, I want to pass on money to my heirs. Like, that's a totally legitimate goal. And you can actually work with a financial advisor to ensure that kind of strategy happens. The issue is when people say, no, I actually want to spend this money down, but then they don't.
Yeah.
And they get to that point where they have the assets and they psychologically cannot spend them. And so I started looking into, well, why is that? Maybe there's some research about that topic. And it turns out that there is. So I just started digging into it and see what I could find.
Yeah, it's interesting that you bring that up. I was actually walking down at lunchtime. I always call a client as I'm walking down to go get my lunch, make the most of my day, getting my Good Life salad, the chicken Caesar with a side of avocado. And I was talking to one of my clients who she's about 51 and he's 64. And in the last review we did, he was like, we don't have enough money for me to retire next year. And I'm like, my guy, look at these projections. You're going to be just fine and then have a hell of a lot to work out what you're going to do on the back of it. But they were still uncomfortable. They were still unsure. There was very emotional kind of descriptions of, I don't want to be 67 in a rocking chair staring at the wall because I've run out of money.
Yeah, right. Well, who wants that, right?
Yeah.
And, it's probably, maybe there's some legitimacy to this, right? The downside risk of running out is much more severe than the upside benefit, right? Yeah. So there, it makes some sense. And of course, because you have that risk, you hire a financial advisor. But even when the financial advisor gives you insight saying, listen, you absolutely can spend this money. Psychologically, it's hard. And what the science suggests, I figured out through this process that I'm actually a tightwad. No, I'm
the opposite of mine.
I might have had some insight on that before, but this kind of confirmed it. Actually, there's a test you can take.
Yeah.
That says if you are a tightwad or a spendthrift. But the idea is that when people spend money, a classical economic theory going back to Irving Fisher was that people spend money because they're trying to maximize the joy they get from spending. And they might be able to spend into the future. And if they spend in the future, that would give them more joy than spending now. And of course, that can make sense. But Fisher's ideas fall apart because people don't delay spending because they're trying to get more joy into the future. The future spend brings more happiness than the current spend. They don't spend because it hurts to spend. And what happens, they put people under an fMRI machine. This is a paper by Scott Rick and Lowenstein. And as to my knowledge, they're professors at Carnegie Mellon University. And they put people through an fMRI machine and they showed them prices. And they asked, about spending decisions. And what they found is their brains start to light up in the area of the brain that processes pain.
Yeah.
And they're like, what? You're not spending because, you're figuring out how to maximize your happiness. You're not spending because it hurts. It actually hurts to spend. And of course, as soon as it's like about hurt, then you have scale. You have some people that it hurts very little, and you might call those people spendthrifts. And then you have people that it hurts a lot to spend. You might call them tightwads.
Yeah.
Right. My two friends here, right?
Yeah.
And so,
But those Gucci sneakers.
Hey, Mike, can you pick up breakfast?
Yeah. Because that hurts.
Yeah.
so there's a lot of there's a way of even identifying if you are. There's even questions, right? And you think to yourself, is this correlated at all with wealth? And what the research found out is the more money you have, the more it hurts to spend it.
It's counterintuitive.
That is counterintuitive.
Yeah.
You think, gee, I don't need this. I have a little bit of extra money, therefore it's not very painful to spend it. Maybe that's how people get wealthy anyways, right? Is that they accumulate wealth because they're not interested in spending. So financial advisors are very likely to come across working with people that have that sort of thing inside their brain that goes, no, I don't want to spend. I want to save.
Yeah.
I want to invest. I feel really comfortable with the size of my portfolio or the size of my assets, and that's giving me psychological comfort. And therefore, when I start to spend that down, I actually start to feel physical pain.
Yeah.
But financial advisors, since we deal with clients at so many different stages of their life cycle, not just sort of accumulating wealth, but decumulating and even that towards the end of life, we sort of have that insight that goes, no, you can't take this to the grave.
Yeah.
And we try to encourage them to spend, but it's difficult. So a lot of the research then went, well, how do I encourage someone to spend, that should spend, that wants to spend, but is having trouble spending?
Because I'm looking at these tests, the results in this test that was done. It's quite interesting. Like 66% are more like a tightwad than the 15% that are more like a spendthrift, and then 19% are in the middle. That does surprise me, like especially when you talk to kind of the average mom and dad, and usually they don't have a budget and they kind of need to be pulled into line. It surprises me that more people are like the tightwad than the spendthrift.
But do you think that's because people don't fundamentally know where they're spending?
Very good point.
Because actually, most people say, I just don't know where the money goes. It's not like they're spending on big ticket items all the time. They're consciously making that decision. It's a coffee here and a sandwich here and McDonald's here and this here that kind of accumulates.
3 week to Europe there.
Well, we can actually run a test for the listeners, right? So that particular result came from someone who is testing people in the Pittsburgh airport. And what they were testing is, because they thought, where can I go where people have discretionary money? Because you don't really want to talk to people without discretionary money, because that's not the population people are interested in. Oh, the airport, if you fly, you probably have discretionary money. It's kind of a proxy. It's not really a good one, but it was what they used. So, and they asked a lot of people some questions. And amongst the questions was this, right? So the premise of the question was, you really enjoy tennis. You play tennis twice a week. And you notice a small crack in your racket. Now, it doesn't affect your ability to play at all, but you don't really like it. So you go to the mall and you go to 2 different sports stores and you look at tennis rackets for over an hour. And yet you walk out of the mall without buying a tennis racket. Okay, so that was one type of person. The second type of person is, there's no crack in your racket. Your racket's perfectly fine, but yet you're at the mall. You still play tennis twice a week. You're at the mall and you go to 2 different sports stores and you test out tennis rackets and you buy a racket that you don't otherwise need, right? And the question was, which are you more like? The guy who doesn't buy the racket that really wants the racket, or the guy who buys the second racket that he doesn't need? And so 66% of people said, mate, I'm actually like the guy who wants a racket, should buy a racket, is bothered by the crack in my racket, and I have not bought a racket, right? Even though I invested the time in
playing.
I think 33% of those 66% are lying to themselves.
Yeah. Well, you're just trying to make yourself feel better because we know you're definitely the spendthrift.
Of course, it's my hobby. I enjoy it. Do I want a new racket? Yeah, I would. Do if I have the disposable income to do it? I would. I genuinely think that asking someone their behavior versus tracking their actual behavior might yield slightly different results.
That's interesting
because
idea.
people think they are. You know this as well as I do. When people come to us and they talk to us, oh, my spending's just a little bit bad recently. No, your spending's always like this.
Yeah.
It's not the last 3 months. People think they are better than they are.
Yeah. Cool. Okay, but let's just go off these results. So 66% thought they would spend the time looking and then walk out.
And then walk out with nothing, right? So the result of that is there seems to be this barrier when people have enough discretionary money. There is a barrier for some of them to spend it down. Like you might talk to an investor, and you're running these projections, right? And I'm just going to give a scenario just so we have something to play with. Like they have $3 million of disposable income, right? That they have invested. You run a projection. The projection shows by the time you're 90, you're gonna have $5 million to project, right? Yeah, you're not only are you not gonna spend down your principal, we're really looking like we're gonna grow principal here, right? But they've told you, hey, before you show them the numbers, what would you like? Oh, I'm gonna give the kids the property. I'm gonna give the kids the home. And that's enough for them. And, I've accumulated, I want to spend this money. Yeah. And yet, in the end, they can't. And I think that has to be a result, which I know we're not speaking specifically to financial advisors, but I know you two are financial advisors. And that has to be a result that we're not satisfied with.
Yeah.
People do not give money to us so we can hoard it for them.
Yeah.
They give money for us because they want to use that money to live a satisfying and enjoyable life. And if they want to pass that money on, then bless them. My grandma is that way. I sat down with grandma in the last couple of years of her life. She kind of became a millionaire in the last couple of years of her life because the Los Angeles County sort of like overtook her land, and her land became valuable in her 80s when it hadn't really been valuable before. And so grandma now is in her 80s and has money. I said, Grandma, what do you want to do with this money? Because I was her financial advisor back in the States. And she's like, I want to give it to my boys. That's what I want to do. Yeah. Right? This money's for the boys. And I'm like, good, Grandma. Right? That's all right. There's nothing wrong with that. That was her intention. Yeah. The issue is when it's not your intention, but it's what you're tracking to do anyways, because maybe there's fear.
Yeah.
And the financial advisor's job should be to resolve that fear so that someone can actually spend the money on the things that they find satisfying in life. That could be for other people. That could be altruistic. That could be generous. That could be charitable. That could be adventurous. That could be trying new things. But you've earned the right to not have that fear anymore. So how do we do it?
Do you think, so the ones that do want to spend the money who don't spend the money, do you think part of it is, I don't know, say they've been grinding along all their lives and maybe they've had to spare $10,000 a year to kind of spend on stuff that they want, and now they're in a position where you're like, you can spend $100,000 a year, you can go on these trips, fly business class, get your Gucci slides, whatever it is that's important to you, and while they might say in that situation that's what they want, the jump between who they are ingrained as for such a long period of time, how they've been brought up, all of those, the jumps, too big of a jump.
I think you've hit the nail on the head, right? I'll give you a story of a friend. I'll use a different name, and he's an older man. Let's say his name's Jerry, and so Jerry is in his late 70s now, and Jerry. Every once in a while, he invests mostly in term deposits, and every once in a while he says, Ben, am I going to run out of money? And I'm like, no, you're not going to run out of money.
You'll be right.
In fact, one time I said to him, Jerry, do you want your casket made of gold, silver, platinum? Platinum sinks faster. And
that'd be good for you, Mike, because we know where you're heading after this life.
No, like you're gonna be fine. Jerry doesn't spend much more than he gets from government super for him and his spouse. But here's the funny thing. So I said to Jerry one time, Jerry, have you ever wanted to own a car? that you just never gave yourself permission to buy. He said, actually, Ben, I have. That's true. I've always wanted to own a Jaguar. I said, really, a Jaguar? She's like, yeah, absolutely. I said, Jerry, go down to the dealership today and test drive a Jaguar. Can you sure I can afford it? Swearing on my grave, you can afford to buy this Jaguar. You absolutely can afford to buy this Jaguar. He's like, really?
Yeah.
I'm like, yeah. Okay, so he goes down and he does it. And the next day he calls me. He says, Ben, you will not believe this. I'm thinking this is going to be good, right? You're not going to believe this. I'm like, he test drove. He's like, I test drove the Jaguar. I'm like, awesome, Jerry. That is so great. He's like, yeah. I'm like, did you get it? He's like, well, I came home and I said to my wife, hey, you won't believe this, but because of Ben's encouragement, I test drove a Jaguar. And do you know what she said to me, Ben? I'm like, what'd she say, Jerry? She said, you'd look like an ass driving a Jaguar. Right? And so Jerry did not buy a Jaguar. Do you know what Jerry bought? He bought a Hyundai is what Jerry bought.
Sensible.
Very sensible. And so what we're really running up against is like, there's a social barrier.
Yeah.
You don't have to get people to be different than who they are.
Yeah.
You have to get them to spend money to be more of who they are, to be more of what their values are. Find out, everyone has these.
Yeah.
Everyone's been given a leg up in life by someone, some organization, some person. Well, they identify with giving someone else a leg up in life.
Yeah.
So you have to identify what people really value inside and allow them to spend money that way that makes them not feel like an ass.
Yeah.
Or look like an ass to their social circle.
Yeah.
Where they are suddenly outside of their social circle's normal spending.
Yeah.
So that's a big key for an advisor, is to figure out what that is. It's not our agenda on what to spend. It's understanding them at such an intimate level that we can give them the insight how to do that.
And a big part of it is when we're meeting with a client and they go, I want this much money in the bank, or I want this much property, or I'm thinking about buying another property, or I'm thinking about doing this investment or whatever. I go, no. Tell me what's important to you.
Absolutely.
Tell me where you want to go, who's important to you, what are your goals in the future. And if we can get the goals right, because the way we're designed right is we're talking about, struggle spending, but also we're designed for around instant gratification, or that's how we're wired. And if we're going to stay committed to a longer term objective, a longer term goal, if you're earlier in the piece, then it has to be strong enough to stick to a plan and to do something. And if you can set those, I'm going to have these things at this point in life once I've achieved them. Once you get to that point, that's a very special day because you've been working towards something for such a long time.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So Ben, another question, right? This all makes sense. Say we've got one person in a relationship. Another thing, checks and balances viewers. I don't know if you know this, Mike. It's always one person in a relationship watching the Finance Bros on a podcast. So you've got your spend thrifts, you've got your tightwads.
Yeah.
Do they marry each other?
They so this is done by a researcher called Scott Rick, and he helped contribute to the previous paper. And what he found is that if you are a spendthrift, you are more likely to marry a tightwad than you are to marry another spendthrift or marry a neutral, right? So, and it almost makes sense. Like if I'm a tightwad, and I'm around a spendthrift, I almost feel like they liberate me, right? Because I'm so in my own world. It's like I'm enjoying the fact, wow, you really opening my eyes. And then likewise, if you're a spendthrift and you marry a tightwad, you're like, boy, this person's bringing some discipline into my life.
Yeah.
And I really need that. And that's all good until you marry that person.
Yeah.
And then you have to make day by day financial decisions. And it's really stressful. And you are twice as likely to say that you are perfectly happy with your marriage if you are married to the same type of spender than the opposite type. Now, that is a big deal. To find any signal in data that says I'm twice as likely to be perfectly happy in my marriage if I just make the decision of not marrying my opposite, of marrying the same, that makes a huge difference.
So you're saying
Just-
I shouldn't get married?
just as I'm not answering that question. Just as a side note, this is why we want to do like finance, speed dating, like checks and balances. I reckon it'd be so much fun. But anyway, so Ben, we've got just looking at time. We're going to wrap things up. I've got 2 quick questions.
Yep.
First one, if you're at different ends of the spectrum with your partner, how do you get on the same page?
Okay, so here's the key. I think you can move someone who's a tightwad into a neutral, and there's certain ways you can do that. But the most important way to do that is actually through the process of checking off everything that person thinks they need to be comfortable. So if I take a portfolio, and let's say I'm only talking about the instance where I have more than I need. I know there's lots of instances where that's not true, but that's just not the particular case we're looking at now. We're looking at someone who has money to spend and can't spend it. So what you do is you earmark everything you think you're going to need, like whether anything you can think of, what this is going to cost, and not only this year, but into the future perpetually, right? And then the financial advisor sits back and says, you know what? I can value what if we're in the kind of portfolio that we've designed for you, and that portfolio just gets the expected return, not any better than the expected return. To finance all that, plus what you get in government super, you're going to need this much. Let's say it's $700,000, $800,000. Well, but you're sitting on $1.5 million. That means you have $700,000 here that you are free to spend. And psychologically, although that's called mental accounting, that is incredibly powerful. Because if you put everything into one bucket and you're spending out of that bucket like with discretionary spending or buying a nicer car or something that feels a little bit frivolous, you're thinking, I'm spending the money I'm going to use to support myself when I'm in old age. And if you separate in a different bucket, you actually take away that I'm spending away my future security. I'm not spending away your future security. This is the extra money, right? And psychologically, that really matters, that you're only spending the extra money. And you might call that fund like the bucket list.
Yeah.
Right. And then you put your bucket list next to this. And listen, you're not eating grocery money here.
Yeah.
And as financial advisors, if you go through a rough patch in the market and you go, hey, gee, like things have gone as well as had hoped, and that can happen, you might just allocate a little bit of money over from this bucket, over into the spending bucket, because it's more important to secure your lifelong spending needs than on the extra stuff. But you have the permission to spend over there.
Yeah.
Right. So that could be a really critical thing for just satisfying that inner fear in the tightwad. Would be the first thing that I'd recommend.
Nice. Cool. Okay. So if you have a tightwad in your life, send them this video and go, hey buddy, this is you. Ravi, this is going straight to you. Thank you, Ben, very much for joining us.
Thank you.
Please make sure to hit us with a sub, a review, and a like. And share it with all the tightwad friends you have. And we'll see you next time.
Cheers.
Thanks.